Hey, I'm back. This is Chandler for Melda Production, and today I want to show you how you can create different timbres with your plucks, especially using the additive oscillator. So, normally when I'm using a pluck, I might use this oscillator here instead of the additive oscillator. And this is cool, so I have something set up now using the filter. I'm just using the attack on the frequency here and the output, so it sounds like this. Sounds all right, but as I change this, you notice lots of these don't sound that different, so one of the problems is it's just the filter. And of course, if you look in the harmonics, you can see I can change the levels of all the harmonics, I can change the phase, and that's cool, but one thing I can't change is the actual frequency of each harmonic. And so that's kind of limiting us. So it's not a bad limitation, but let's say we want some more freedom to, do something interesting and wild. So instead of using the oscillator, what we're going to do is use the additive oscillator here. Okay? Now, the first thing I want to do is turn the count up to 64. Also, I should say I'm using a little bit of reverb on here too. And what I'm going to do now is go into here and just choose saw wave, this. You probably notice, hey, it sounds almost the same. So that's because I'm using almost the exact same thing, saw wave here. This just has less harmonics, but since we're using the filter here, you probably can't even hear those anyway. So it's not really a big deal. Another thing sometimes I like to do is change this initial phase to random, and that's going to randomize the phase of all of these, which is going to give it a little bit more stereo width. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Hopefully you can. But let's see. If we wanted to use something else besides this saw, now we can actually do some more interesting stuff. So I can do some really wild stuff like this. So you can see these don't actually have harmonic frequencies. So you see, instead of this should be 12, it's actually like 14.67, etc. And we can go in and do even wilder ones like these. Let's try buzz. I don't even know what this is going to sound like. Or metal. Wood. Turn this down. Still might be too loud. But you get the idea. So there's all sorts of different sounds I could make with this, and I could do lots of interesting things with it if I wanted to. First, I should turn it down though. I can do, like, let's say arpeggios. Or this. Or, let me see, what else do I have here? Anvil. I don't know. Hopefully this hopefully won't be too loud. A little bit too loud. So you see, like, okay, we have lots of interesting sounds here, but let's see what we can do to make them a little bit more interesting. Let's go here, like one of the synths. Like a different type of saw sound. Now you notice if we open up the structure that we have more than one structure we can use. So I was just using A before, but I can move it over to B and we can try something different, like, I don't know, we could use one of those Foley textures just so you can hear it better. Let's see, use buzz. Okay. Now you'll notice, turn the ARP off for a second, I can move between these. But if I try to move it while I'm pressing it like this, I'm getting that, I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is, let's try just setting this to random. So now it's going to play randomly someplace between A and B each time I hit the button. So that's interesting, and if I use the arpeggiator, it might be even more interesting, like this. Okay, and from there we can do even more wild things. So we can use the same thing, but instead of using note random, let's do note random every 4. So now every 4 notes, it's going to choose a random value between A and B, like this. And we can even do some things like I showed in the last video. Let's try, let's say, counter 4. And so what this is going to do is it's going to gradually increase until it gets to 4. So the 4th note, like this. I'll do it quickly. And that's interesting. And there's even more things we could do with that with these modulators. But one I'd like to show you is the velocity. So this one is really interesting to me. So if I play very softly, I'll be able to play more of that first synth sound. But if I play harder, you'll get more of the metal sound. And I should mention I have the velocity set at 0 range. So even when I press softly, it's not going to be a big difference in volume like this. A little bit harder. And I can even mess with the ARP now with this and try to, okay, let's kind of mess with these velocities and create something more random. Actually, this here. This. So you can create all sorts of things like that, and by doing this, I can create something that's almost surreal. So it's like a synthesizer and a metallic instrument together. So something that wouldn't actually exist in real life can be made using this. And of course, if you're thinking like, hey, what if I wanted to use this and like spread it out like a super saw? Well, you just go into here, add the Unison, copy this one. And now we're just going to add it inside the Unison here. 4 voices like this, and then down tune it. So something like this. And you can play with that to taste. So hopefully this gave you some interesting ideas. If it did, give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, leave those down below and check out all the other plugins at meldaproduction.com. Till next time, see you.